All right. Um, Steam locomotive construction and maintenance errands. Locomotive publishing. Pittman's technical primer series. Steam locomotive construction and maintenance. Steam locomotive construction and maintenance, describing workshop equipment and practice for the construction of modern steam railway locomotive with notes for the inspection, testing, maintenance, and repairs. 1921, Sir Isaac Pittman, Sons Limited Edition, Parker Street, Kingsway, WC2, Bath, Melbourne, Toronto, and New York. Preface. This book describes the elementary manner with some of the process of the principal star of the locomotive that undergo for the during construction that may be considered for the companion volume of the primer of the steam railway locomotive in the series of subject to the foundry practice of general maintenance shop practices. Processes being dealt with in other with the primaries have been considerably brief and only in their space relationship to the locomotive construction. Naturally, no attempt can be made to deal exhaustively with the machinery process in the small book. The readers who wish them for more detailed treatment of the subject matter refer to the construction of modern locomotive by George Hughes of the M Institute, CEMI and Mechanical E. Which through not a very recent remains the only standard of the work of the British Locomotive Workshop contains the most mass available information. At the request of the publisher, the chapter has been added to the maintenance for the locomotive and service, which gives an also elementary form of the short account with the wear and the tear and some of the more important parts of some idea of the repairs required. Thanks to the author duty, Mr. G.J. Churchwood, M. Institute, C.E., Chief Mechanical Engineer with the Great Western Railway, through the various manufacturers of special machine tools, photographic illustration for a few other illustrations, including the method of the direction of the locomotive cylinders and frames. The author indebted to the kindness of the Locomotive Publishing Company Limited, E.L. Ahrens. Contents: general consideration affecting the method of construction, boiler shop, foundries, forging, springs, etc., machine shops, framing cylinders, machine shop, axle, wheels, general machine shop, erecting shop, setting of the valves, inspecting, testing, locomotive maintenance and repairs, and index. And then illustrations, you have your diagram. We'll skip that page and we'll skip the illustrations and we'll start reading. Steam locomotive construction maintenance, chapter 1, with the general consideration affecting the method of construction. A large volume would require the deal fully with the manufacturer to remain different of the parts of the locomotive, describe the various processes of the foundry, smithy, and forge, boiler shop, machine shop, erecting shop. Moreover, the method of construction of the various parts of the considerably in the small works, perhaps one of the two engines are built at the time for those large works, where the a dozen 50 engines of the same class may be built with the same order. In the first case, method the machine for the ordinary well-equipped equipment engineering shop, which was used to a large extent. In the second case, these are employed special templates, jigs, fixtures, above all, special machinery is adapted for certain definite operations. The cost of such special machinery requires large capital outlay, which is not profitable, expandable to small works. It pays necessary special time, labor, saving the tools, appliances only with several similar engines that are built together as many of the railway works with the motion work. Other parts of the class engine interchangeable with those in other class. Naturally, when the conditions are such that the large number of the similar engines can be constructed together with the help of special tools and jigs, costs per locomotive very considerably reduced. The isolated engine with the new design necessarily expensive, but it's generally paid for the railway company to build such an engine so that it can be tested thoroughly and necessary modifications and alertions made before placing a large order. And we're going to go back to diagram 1 is the, it's too small. Hold on just a second. Alright, diagram 1, illustration manufacturer. The steel bar plates and then bars, rivets, and copper plates and steel and copper tubes go to the boiler shop for boiler. Firebox, boiler mounting shop for mounting safety valves and gauges goes into the boiler testing shop. And also the pig iron, scrap iron, limestone, sand, iron foundry, cylinders, drag box, general casting, cylinder shop, planning and drawing. Boring and drawing cylinders go to the right of the boiler testing shop. Timbers and pattern shops go to the iron foundry, cylinders, drag box, back brackets, get general casting, brass foundry for brass fittings, general brass and gunmetal working, gunmetal axe box holes to the general machine shop for the machine fitting, motion work and oil details to the boiler shop, boiler mounting shop for mounting safety valves, injection gauges and C, and boiler testing shop. And then you have your cast steel wheel centers and general steel casting from the manufacturers goes sorry, they split the page. But from the boiler testing shop, you go to the locomotive engineering shop, then completed engine tender ready for the trail trip. From the cast steel wheel irons, general steel casting manufacturers, it goes to the general machine shop for machining, fitting of the machine, motion work and all details. General cast steel, general centers, steel coatings for manufacturers. Goes to wheel axle shop, remaining axles, layers, and wheels, and which go to the tender tank in the shop. Then completed engine tender ready for the trail trip, and the paint shop with the running shed. Your copper tin non-ferrous metals go to the coppersmith shop with the dome safety valve with the covers of flange and steam pipes. Steam steel and iron bars go to the smith shop and the spring shop for locomotive and erecting shop. Blooms and ingots for axles connection with the coupling of the rods go to the general machine shop. Rough axles and tires go to the wheel axle shop. Machine axles and tires to the wheel. Steel frame plates go to the engine tender frame shop, the tender traction tank shop, and completed engine tender ready for the trail and trip. And tank plates and angles go to the tender and tank shop, completed for the engine tender ready for the trail trip, paint shop, and running shed. Alright, moving on back to where we were reading before. Provides progress of the work for the, through the workshop of the general idea in order to which the work would pass with the various shop that began with the figure 1, beginning with the raw material for the later term of the maybe generally doesn't include the considerable quantity of the semi-finished material, steel casting, axles, tires, may be mentioned, especially in the connection with one or two locomotives work. Both of the railway companies, private firms, made their own steel casting. Generally, those who purchased from outside manufacturers, same applied with the rough forge axle, the tires, or in most cases rolled at mills of the steel markers who make it specialty of the such for the work. Diagram 1 explains itself that there are considerable variations for the practices different than work for the instant boiler mounting work that is frequently done in an annex for the boiler shop itself, the general machine shop, that they are frequently 2 or even 3, 1 or 2 being devoted with a large machine employed upon the heavy part with another smaller machine. Small pieces of the repetition of the diagram does not show the routine taken at every part of the goes to the form of the locomotive. To do this would be impossible for the instant of the firebox locomotive boiler is stayed with a large number of the screwed steel and copper staves, and the latest practice screwed machines, which are placed for the convenient bay in the boiler shop itself. But as more often than the case made with the one of the machine shop from which they go to the boiler, they are frequently make such cross paths for the various details, and to show these would make the diagram unnecessarily complicated. Certain materials coming of the manufacturer that has also omitted such of the asbestos mattresses and magnesium block sheet for the boiler covering or lagging as in term. These are taken from the stores directly with the erecting shop where the boiler is lagged during the later stages of the erection of the engine. One department not shown on the diagram must be mentioned briefly. This template of the shop is within the sheet of the metal with a cutout with the finished shape of the different parts of the boiler, engine details, and corners of the drawings. The templates are sent to the forged boiler machine shop when they are laid upon the considering corresponding parts of the manufacturer instead of marking off the later measurement by rule and make marking time saved by the use of the templates. Stores and costing accounts. All raw materials, semi-manufactured parts of the steel casting are received from the markets and general stores. The work manager issued the necessary order to the stores of such materials and articles which are sent with the various shops in which they are required. The cost of those indebted to the particular order, say the 10 locomotives for which they are to be used, each of the order receiving the order number against everything that changes required for the particular lot of the engine until they are completed. The cost of the labor, the determined means for the daytime sheets, which number of the hours taken from each workman entered against the order with which he has been engaged. Finally, an overall charge is added to the general expense, which include the rent rate, taxes, management, unskilled labor, the drawing office of expenses, power, lighting, and depreciation of plant. The charge usually takes form of the fixed percentage, either total cost of the material, skilled labor that combined with or the cost of the skilled labor alone, generally laddered with the combined total give the cost of the engine built with a particular order of the consideration divided with the number of the locomotives given in the cost of the engine. Before the water for the cost average of the mainline engine tender, when say the 10 were constructed together, they would vary roughly through about 25 to 2,500, 3,000 at the 2,500 to 3,700. It works accordingly with the size of the engine. Fluctuating prices, material, post-war conditions have caused the cost to be 3.5 times to 4 times above the amounts. Chapter 2, the boiler shop.